The socioeconomic system of the developed world is is destroying the habitable Earth, and it's also causing abject poverty to somewhere around half of all the people on Earth, and possibly way more than that. And many Americans in particular, which since I'm one, that's the people I know the most of, uh, believe that what causes that is capitalism. And uh, that's because that's our system, and you look around at our system and you see the really crummy results that it's providing. And you say that system's wrong. And I understand why people say that. But I don't think capitalism by itself is a problem. I think that the problem is deeper, more fundamental to developed societies. One of the reasons I think that is because I look around the world and I see that there's never been a communist society that provided any better results. So there's capitalism doesn't work and communism doesn't work. And so far nobody's thought of any other ways that are that have been able to be implemented. Of course, communism's never really been able to be implemented either. I mean, in one sense, you know, the idea that everyone owns the means of production. Paneling falls. Hang on a minute, I've lost my water bottle. If you own something, you control that thing that you own. And since in the communist societies, the big ones that we know about, like the Soviet Union and China, and also the smaller ones like Vietnam and Cuba, the people don't have any control over the means of production. So the sense of ownership is false. They don't own it. They can't control it. You know, I own this farm. I get to make the decisions as to how it gets managed. I own this farm under a capitalist system. I bought it with, well, my wife bought it with her money. I bought the other farm with my money. We take our capital and we invest it in this farm, and we try to produce the things we want to produce. So it's not the capitalist system or the communist system. And I've been thinking about this for a long, long time. Uh, and I've concluded that the fundamental problems literally had their roots in the agricultural revolution, not the industrial revolution, although it was a bad thing too. What's wrong is our ownership model. We have an ownership model which says that the entity, the person or organization that owns a piece of property has the absolute right to destroy that piece of property. And this earth is permanent and humans are temporary. Obviously, you know, there is no infinite time and all that. I got all that, okay? But in a human sense, the earth is permanent. You know, it was here billions of years ago. And in all likelihood, the planet itself will still be here for a long time, much longer than I will, for instance. Easy baby, everything's okay. Oh, I know, Bandit's chasing patches, he's just being a jerk. Bandit! Quit that! Bandit! Quit that! Come on, girls, it's alright. Bandit chases patches, which is he's not permitted to do, but I can't really stop him. Come on, girls, it's okay. Come on, Clara. Come on, kids. Come on, babies. Come back. There, good girls. They were going to anyway, but you know, if you want to have an illusion of control, you tell them to do what they're about to do, and then they think they did what you told them to do. You know, in the long run, it helps. Anyway, no human should have the right to destroy the living earth. That should not be a right of ownership. You know, when you think of private property, I consider private property to be completely natural. Every bird has her own nest. That's private. It's hers. Cowbirds will come and lay eggs in your nest. You know, some people don't respect private property. Human thieves don't respect private property either. But the private property was there. But the bird's not going to cut down the tree. She's not going to poison the land. She's going to live in her private property and raise her children there. And depending on the species, her male may help her, or he may just be off, you know, down at the tavern. But that's private property. Every fox owns his or her own burrow. But they don't go inside their burrow and build concrete walls so that it will be a burrow forever. They build their burrow within the earth in a way that when their use of it is done, the earth can easily restore it to what it was. And at the time of the agricultural revolution, human beings decided that they had the right and the need to peel all the living, all the life, all the biome off the land, kill every single plant and animal that lived on it, and then plant their annual food within it, and in 4 months, roughly, harvest that and store it, eat it for the year, and come back the next year and kill everything on that field. Of course, that model didn't work very well because within a few generations, that field would no longer provide food for them. The thing which made the fertility, which they cashed in, was the biome. It was the life that lived on that piece of land. And when they peeled off all the life except the microscopic life which remained within the soil, that land immediately began to impoverish. And within a few generations, they had so killed it that it wouldn't raise them food anymore, and then they had to go take somebody else's land away from them. And this cycle has repeated now for somewhere between 6,000 and 10,000 years, and we've killed most of the land that we could reach on the whole planet. That model of ownership is wrong. You don't care whether you call, you know, this was before things like capitalism and communism had been invented. I mean, basically, the first fields were established by an economic system called takeism, which is I'm just going to take this, you know, and there's still a lot of that. What we need to do is we need to change our ownership model to an ownership of the fruits of the land model. That is to say, I could live here on this farm, and I could take the grass that grows on this farm and feed it to these donkeys. That's what they're eating now. They're eating grass that grew on this farm. And then I could take the strength they get out of that, and I could use their strength to harvest more grass, and then they'd have spare strength left over, and I could use that to harvest, you know, my nuts or my fruits or my berries. But this land, other things have a right to live on this land too, because we're only one piece of the world. We're not the whole earth. And the way that it worked before we broke it was that all the things of the biome put together produced everything we needed. All the food we needed, all the fiber we needed, all the hard things we needed to make hammers and knives and sew, all the fabrics we needed to dress our bodies. The biome created all of that. And our place as members of the biome is to harvest that. You know, we've reached a place now where some people think they have the right to kill everything, and other people think that we should never eat an animal. I disagree with both. everything gets eaten. I will get eaten. It is my intention to not be embalmed. It is my intention to be eaten. My right as a part of this biome is to live here for the duration of my life, and then for my component parts to be returned to the biome to nourish it and to make it healthier and stronger. And it is literally the truth, the geological historical truth, that everything out here was created by the biome. You know, I can't find it. If you look out there, that's all life. That's all grass and trees. It's all alive. And it's making more food for everybody. It's making food for these animals. It's making food for me. Some of those trees are mulberry trees, and we eat a lot of mulberries in a year. I've planted other trees that will make other foods that are staples, things like walnuts and chestnuts, even acorns, other fruits. The biome, the living portion of the earth, is what makes our life possible. That is absolutely undisputably true. Our agriculture does not create grains. It uses a brutal and aggressive means to harvest the life energy of the biome and turn it into grains, and to leave the biome diminished. But that's not the only way to eat. If you look at the entire history of life on Earth, at the very, very, very beginning, 4 or 5 billion years ago, I mean, everybody's guessing, but that's a realistic guess, something developed the characteristic we call life. And it was one single cell. It didn't even run on sun power. It ran on the heat of the earth. It ran on the chemistry of the earth. It ran on the non-living portions of the earth. And as that thing both reproduced and died, its increase by reproduction increased the biome on Earth. And its death left a substrate that had been living, that was largely carbon and also hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. And that substrate was more productive than the bare rock and the bare water on which it started. And literally, it took billions and billions of years. But on the production of those first living things, and their descendants, and their descendants, and we are literally descended from those first living things. There's no place where life stopped and then humans popped into existence, okay? We're descended from that first ever life. And all of this out here, everything you see that is alive, that all lives on the production of previous life forms. The bare naked earth without life could not support humans. We only live here because of the contribution of all the other life forms, all of the life on Earth. What we think of as Earth is predominantly the living portions. You know, we take coal out of the earth, well, that was alive once. We take oil out of the earth, well, that was alive once. We take limestone out of the earth, well, that was alive once. That's the skeletons of things that used to live in the ocean. There are a few things out there that were never alive. You know, we take sandstone and sand and those quartzes and silicates were probably never alive yet. But essentially, all the productive portion of the earth is the living portion. And although we have a right as members of it to alter it, you take beavers come down here, and what are they going to do? Okay, they're going to cut down trees, so that alters the living portion of the earth. They're going to build dams, so that alters the non-living portion of the earth. They're going to impound the water behind their dams, and so they've altered the flow of the water. They've altered their ecosystem, and they've altered it drastically. But for every alteration they make, the ability of the ecosystem to support life increases. Beavers are what we call a keystone species. Wherever they go, wherever they set up, they increase the habitability of that part of life for other species. Up until the onset of agriculture, humans did too. We can look at the record that we can see written on the earth of the American indigenous people, who we tend to call Indians, and they burnt prairies, and they encouraged trees that made food for them, and they discouraged trees that didn't. And by their actions, they made the earth more habitable for their species. But that also made the earth more habitable for other species. They, just like beavers, they did their proper ecological human function, which was they interacted with the rest of the biome in ways that increased its productivity. And that continued to go on until the agricultural revolution. And on that day, we began to decrease the productivity of the biome for all species except our own, and take a trade-off which increased the productivity for ourselves. And it has been one of the things which has enabled us to get very large numbers, although in reality, had it not been for vaccinations, the invention of vaccinations is really what let our numbers get so large, because periodically some infectious disease would come through and peel our numbers back down to very small. I mean, the Black Death made us a rare species for several generations in Europe. So it wasn't our agriculture that let our numbers get large. It was mostly the invention of vaccines. If you were going to take one single thing and say this is how humans got to be 7.5 billion, the invention of vaccines did it. Our agriculture is really not very productive. It produces a lot of one particular grain, but in terms of total biological production per acre, it's minimal. Compared to this grass field out here is producing more life per acre than my neighbor's soybean field on the other side of the fence up there. And I can't eat soybeans. He's not growing people food. You can turn soybeans into things people can eat, but you could make all the soybean that people needed to eat. You could grow that on just little patches of ground. We turn it into plastic, and we turn it into hogs, and we turn it into all sorts of things. It's not the capitalism, although the capitalism is destructive. It is the principles of ownership. This land here, I'm on 28 acres, and with these 3 donkeys and some human-made machinery, I could just about manage this whole 28 acres. Now, I couldn't manage it all as annual grains, but if I choose to manage it in cooperation with the biome, everything out there is alive, and it all wants to make life. And one human model is we go out there and we just peel off all the life, we kill everything, and then we simplify it so completely that we can establish control over vast ranges of it. That's evil. I don't care if you call yourself a communist. I don't care if you call yourself a king. I don't care if you call yourself a capitalist. That's wrong. It's fundamentally wrong because in the long run, it doesn't work. You're not only stealing from the world, you're stealing from your own children. People alive today have never seen a passenger pigeon. They were stolen from us by previous generations of white people in America. And every species that goes extinct today, which, there's thousands upon thousands of species that go extinct every year, my generation is stealing those, and your generation, if you're younger than me, is stealing those from generations not yet born. It's not our property. We don't own it. I have a right to live here. I have a right to eat from the fruits of this ground because I'm part of this world. If you don't believe that you're literally a part of the world, we got this coronavirus. We can't stand within 6 feet of one another because my exhalations are part of this world. My exhalations are so much a part of this world that in a 6-foot circle around me, you can't even breathe if you breathe my exhalations. That's the earth. That out there is not an environment in which we uniquely, separately live. That out there and this in here is all one thing. It was made to operate together. And what we have done is we have established this insane model of ownership. It's as if one bird had the right to own an entire forest, and no other bird could build a nest in any tree in the forest without giving that one bird half of every bug it ever caught, half of every worm it ever caught, half of every seed it ever caught. That's insane. I don't care what you call it. I don't care if you call it capitalism and you manage it by who gets the most dollars, or if you call it communism and you manage it by who gets the most guns. It doesn't matter. It's wrong. It's just wrong. What we have as humans, as members of this planet, is a right to live on part of it, to drink the water of it, to eat the fruits of it, to dress ourselves with the fruits of it. When an animal dies, we have the right, I think, honorable right, to take the skin it's no longer using and make clothing out of it, to take the bones it's no longer using and make tools out of them. It doesn't need them anymore. The only way to prevent an animal from dying is to prevent it from being born. So those who say you should never, ever, ever wear leather because an animal had to die for it, might as well say you should never, ever wear leather because an animal had to be born for it. It's all one cycle, life and death. Each of us lives. Each of us dies. Each of us is made entirely. Every ounce of this body, every gram, every microgram of the body that's sitting here talking to you is made out of this earth. Most of it is literally made out of the air. Somewhere, some plant caught sunlight, used that sunlight to suck carbon out of the atmosphere, twirl that carbon together into sugars, make those sugars its own body get larger. Then either I ate the plant or some animal ate the plant and made its body out of the plant, so now the animal's made out of the air. And I ate the animal, so now I'm made out of the air. or I ate the plant, so I'm made out of the air. I am just more earth. My body is made out of carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, iron, calcium. There's nothing in here that wasn't earth the day before I was conceived. There's nothing in here that won't be earth the day after I die. Therefore, there's nothing in here that isn't earth now, today. Our ownership model is wrong. We are not owners of this earth to swagger over the top of it and tear the life of it and leave it dead behind us and build parking lots. We are members of this earth to walk across it, draw from it our food, leave behind our urine and feces, both of which are fertilizers, and then in the long run leave behind our body, which is also a fertilizer. And how we manage that, personally, I think that capitalism at its most basic, simplified form, which is I go out here and I take from the ground all the chestnuts that fell off a tree, and I eat all the ones I can eat, and I go to the guy down the street and I say, here, I got all these chestnuts, I'll trade them to you for some of those cherries. I take my gain and I trade them with my fellow humans for their gain, and we all eat. The idea that one bird has the right to own the whole forest and every other bird has to pay him, her, to build a nest, that's evil. It's not because she bought the forest with money and is a capitalist. It's not because she took the forest with guns and is a communist. It's because she took the forest at all. She has no right to the whole forest. I read a while back that Sean Hannity owns over 800 houses. Sean Hannity has no right to own 800 houses. I don't care what you call the system. Yeah. Xi Jinping can control where everybody in China lives. He has no right to do that. He's not a capitalist. He's a communist. It doesn't make any difference. It's the ownership model. Our ownership model is wrong. Our management model is wrong. Our understanding of our place as humans on this earth, the predominant understanding today, is wrong. We have no right to peel the life off this earth. We have a right to eat from it, just as my friends behind me are eating from it now. That's all I got today. Thanks for coming along.